Hello everyone, today we're going over Monocote Coverite Ultralight for your aircraft wing and fuselage. We went over tissue paper earlier, and now we'll go over this more popular process. Just first and foremost, tissue paper is probably the more easier, straightforward, more arts and crafts style way of covering an aircraft. Monocote is the usual way that most people do it. It has a little bit more of a learning curve, but it's still a pretty straightforward process to do, and I'll show you that today on this wing base that we're working on. Again, it's relatively lightweight and is a process that requires, just like tissue paper, a little bit of patience. Really quickly moving over, while tissue paper is good on smaller control surfaces, Ultracote or Monocote or Coverite is good for pretty much all application on your aircraft. It's simple as long as the design is simple, meaning that if you have a complex fuselage geometry, it might be a little bit harder to cover, but it's still pretty reasonable. But for flat surfaces like a tail or stuff like wings, it's very straightforward to do. Primarily in the lab, we do it on wood. It can be done on foam. I'd advise you not to do it across an entire surface area of foam, but if you have like a foam leading edge on your plane, it should cover that fine. It does heat, meaning that it might mess up some of your material properties a little bit. And it also, which is different from tissue paper, might introduce a little bit of torsion in your wing if your structure is not sound enough. For example, here it might be a little bit hard to see, but one of our ribs did bend in a little bit just due to the compression from the heating. But yeah, the process is pretty straightforward and it looks good once it's finished on your wings. But yeah, we'll move over to the process of doing it. Okay, so for our material inventory to get started, it's pretty simple. This is a roll of Hanger 9 Ultracote. We use a lot of Hanger 9 here in the lab. It's pretty reliable. We have the actual wing base that we're going to cover, an X-Acto knife to make some cuts, and then for the heating process, we have a heating iron to do our initial tacking down across the surface area, and then a heat gun that will run over the covering at the end to get the wrinkles off. I already cut out a predetermined sheet of the Ultracote. Essentially, you want the entire surface area to be covered, and then you also want to have some overhang on the sides. Ultracote is going to shrink when it's heated, so in order for it to not recede across your part too much, you're going to want to tack it onto the side walls, so we have that overhang to do that as well. And then we'll get started on the covering. The Ultracote has a clear film on it. I'm going to take off here. It's clear compared to the yellow of the Ultracote. If you're using a fully transparent clear Ultracote, just be sure you're taking off the actual film side. The side that you took the film off is the side that you're going to want to attach to the actual surface. And then in terms of this demo, obviously I'm using a smaller scale wing. You guys will be working with larger scale wings. So the process that I found the easiest is to have one person help to maintain tension in the Ultracote while the other person will use the heating iron. So to get started, for especially wings, I like to do an initial tack on the trailing edge before I work over the rest of it. So for the heating iron, Hanger 9, I found the best. It's a setting of around 150 degrees Celsius. They'll give recommendations on the package, or you can find it online, but I'll work with 150 degrees Celsius. I'm just gonna create a quick little lip right here. And then using just the flat top part of the heating iron, I'm just gonna begin to slowly tack down, working my way outside, and then I'll go from the middle as well. Okay, so once this is fully tacked on, I'm now gonna wrap the top of the wing just to maintain that tension. I'm gonna try to keep it as firm as I possibly can, and then I'm gonna work now the leading edge before I work over the top of the wing base. So again, just using the front tip, I'm gonna start at the edges, and then slowly work my way middle out. Again, this is a patience process. You don't need to apply a ton of heat all the time to the Ultracote. You can let it sit. That will generally get the best results. If you start to see some wrinkles, it might be hard to see on camera. That's totally fine. They should come out with a heat gun. The primary thing for the heat iron is you just need to make sure that the Coverite or Ultracote is on as much of the surface area as possible. So what I'm going to do throughout this process is get it tacked all the way down onto the leading edge, all the ribs and all the spars. Okay, so once I've worked the leading edge, I'm again just going to quickly tack all parts of the top surface area. So I'll work getting just the initial outsides tacked, again just using the tip, the sheet iron. And I'm going to run it across the full surface area. Okay, so now that's fully tacked on top. Again, it might be hard to see, but you should see some wrinkles. I'm going to flip over and do the exact same thing. Again, like what I was saying with tension, if you had a longer wing or a longer piece of Coverite, you'd honestly want someone pulling on the Coverite to make sure it's as straight as possible as you continue to tack. But again, I'm gonna do the same thing, go over all the surface areas of this bottom of the wing. We have the entire surface area fully tacked down. I'm actually going to take scissors to trim off a lot of the excess Ultracote on the side, and then I'm going to tack on that to the side base, and then we'll go back over with a heat gun. Again, there's wrinkles, totally fine. As long as it's tacked down on the surface area, you should be good. I'm just going to cut, leaving some material left to tack down onto the wing base. And I'll probably trim down the rest of the excess with a little bit of an X-Acto knife. Okay, so I finished tacking on. We have our surface area on the side attached, good enough so it won't recede. Again, for the complete wing, we have a little bit of wrinkles. That's totally fine. We're now gonna use the heat gun. Heat gun is basically a hairdryer on steroids. It's very hot, so be careful. Has two settings, has a lower setting and a higher setting. They're both very hot, so I'd advise not running this over your hand the entire time if possible. You also don't want to have it run over the Ultracote for a ton of time. So as I heat, hopefully you'll start to see some of the wrinkles coming out. You want to just kind of brush the heat gun over the Ultracote rather than have one holding it super close to the Ultracote or having it stay on a certain area for a long time. It can cause it to melt and a hole to happen. If you get a hole in the Ultracote, you're going to have to go back over it. So avoid that process if possible. But yeah, I'm gonna turn this on. It will get a little loud, and we'll get the wrinkles out and finish up the wing. Okay, so I finished running the heat gun over it, got all the wrinkles out, so it is a finished form. Again, it's a patience process. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, so I'd advise maybe doing it once or twice as a trial before you actually do it on your actual plane. But yeah, it's a patience process. If you blow a hole in it, it can be patched. It's not the simplest thing to do, but ideally you want to keep it as a one straight sheet. For big wings, you can take multiple sheets and layer them over. That should work fine. You just want to make sure that the seams of each new piece are hot ironed well together. But yeah, it's a straightforward process. Feel free to come to the PPL, practice it. The lab techs know how to do it. But yeah, that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks.